Despite missing out on that rocky launch the game had back in August of 2020, with the latest patch for the Marvel title coming in the form of a next-gen upgrade for the latest consoles, now is the perfect time to check out the title that seemed to vanish from the zeitgeist as soon as it arrived those few months back. With this release, it seems the team at Crystal Dynamics are aiming for this to be a real second bash, with the DLC roadmap presented as well as a new patch including Hawkeye into the fray. Yet how much can you truly change a fundamentally flawed game at its core?
Alright, now that is more like it. Don't it look amazing, Jarvis? Take my picture.
Well done, sir.
Starting with that next gen patch for the PS5, it's thankfully glorious to lay your eyes upon, with the game now looking up to scratch with many of the other titles we have seen given the upgrade treatment. Again, like so many other titles, Avengers provides two graphical modes for you to select from, performance mode or quality mode. The two modes are what we have come to expect over the short few months of the new generation, with performance opting to keep things running at 60 frames per second with a lower resolution, while quality mode opts to present a 4K resolution at 30 frames per second with some apparent extra effects to boot. Opting, as I always seem to do now, to keep the frame rate as a priority, Avengers does look stunning at points in the new hardware, with that targeted 60 frames per second never seeming to be an issue here. Cutscenes as well as gameplay look up to scratch for the PS5 name, and allows for the game's frantic nature to look butter smooth, with there never being a point in which performance was an issue. Quality mode certainly boosts the resolution to that nice 4K target, yet the higher frame rate here makes things hard to go back to the old 30 frames per second ways. With the PS5 version you're getting some exclusive next gen features too, thanks to the hardware potential. While I'm sure the now rapid loading times appear on both consoles, the haptic feedback of the DualSense controller is incredibly well implemented here, with every hero you play having the exact same feeling you would expect the controller to have. Iron Man's blasters provide a heavier pull to the forced feedback triggers, Black Widow's gun attacks have a small clicking upon fully pushing the triggers down, and generally the game just feels fun to control. With these additions providing that extra wow factor that's become a staple of the fan favourite controller of the PlayStation 5. So what about the game itself then? Well, despite missing out on launch, it seems that things remain the same here for better and for worse. At its core, Avengers is still a beat-em-up looter, with you controlling your chosen hero within fairly large levels with up to 3 other friends to accompany you on your mission. The missions are your standard affairs here, with the usual defend a given spot, attack a certain enemy, destroy a specific device being the main hooks of seemingly every mission type outside of the main campaign, and even within the main campaign. There are some minor distractions along the way to find even more loot, which kind of boil down to doing the same thing you're doing as the main part of your mission, but they are still there. The loot you find consists largely of upgrade materials for your armour, as well as new armour themselves, allowing you to enhance your heroes and thus take on more difficult challenges with more rewards, and rinse and repeat. Each hero you control functions the same in terms of core mechanics, with you having an offensive ability, a defensive ability, and finally an ultimate ability, with the 3 having their cooldown periods upon use. The abilities are constructed in a way to encourage teamwork, with some abilities having more use than others, yet all having their own advantages when combined. Yet if you're playing alone like me, then each hero still does enough damage to ensure you never truly feel at loose end in terms of power. You may just feel like you are spamming the abilities with no rhyme or reason, however. Speaking of power, your ability to take on missions comes down to your power level, a meter that is expanded upon the improvement of your hero's equipment. Along with this, your character also has a more traditional level, with each step up nabbing you a skill point to spend on new abilities and moves, as well as progressing you through your given hero's battle pass. I wish that was a joke. Each of the varying controllable characters have its own set of tiers, with each tier offering a new reward, with the likes of emotes and skins being nabbed as you progress through the various tiers. I genuinely didn't even notice this system was in play for several hours, only just scrolling past it as I was trying to navigate the cluttered menu systems. Yet the whole concept plays into the more desperate attempts the game has to squeeze some extra cash out of you. Sure, it should be noted it is definitely just cosmetic only, yet the game is still a full price title that doesn't even do close to enough to warrant such a vast amount of microtransactions, but then, what game does? Before you get into all of that, however, there is that mentioned campaign here to get stuck into before you venture into the field of online play and the endgame. Following the quest of recent newcomer to the Marvel Universe, Miss Marvel aka Kamala Khan, an incredibly cinematic opening details her brief origin story as an Inhuman, before taking you on a 10 or so hour adventure that begins with you mostly controlling Miss Marvel as she attempts to bring the disbanded Avengers team back together, before then having the chance to control each of the game's given heroes. The tale is closer in quality to the likes of, say, Age of Ultron rather than Infinity War, yet it certainly has its moments. These are mostly found in those opening few hours in which you truly begin to connect with Kamala, as you spend an extensive period just controlling her as she learns to harness her powers that her father has forced her to repress for years. The performance from Sandra Sad is genuinely spectacular, with the performance not just shining in those big moments that the character is given, but equally in the smaller touches of her persona that come across in Kamala's genuine passion for the Avengers she's had since her youth. The casting is spot on for the other heroes too, with fan favourites Troy Baker, Laura Bailey and Nolan North bringing the Hulk, Black Widow and Iron Man to life respectively, nailing the same characteristics that fans of the Marvel Universe will be accustomed to. Yet when these iconic heroes are brought into the campaign, it is actually when the game falls apart for me, as the more scripted narrative driven sequences found in those early few hours are pushed to the side in favour of the looter mission types that are the core hook of the online aspect of the game. The game becomes more focused on getting you to grips with the endgame mechanics rather than sticking to just telling a solid story, with the pace being brought to a screeching halt as you must wander the corridors of the Avengers base speaking to merchants who provide meaningless tasks to enhance your loot. Sure, this is what the game ultimately becomes, so to not enjoy these aspects is to simply not enjoy the game period, yet in those opening few hours, Avengers shows that it can, and is willing to commit to a more cinematic narrative, yet forgoes this in an effort to extend the campaign length. For a free upgrade, the next gen patch is a real blessing here, and it is certainly a great step for the game to take in its attempts to gain a second chance at becoming a new regular in your play cycles. Your engagement with the endgame aspects of Avengers is going to be solely down to your preferences and your tolerance for an intense grinding style of game as seen with the emergence of the live service game, with even my short dip into the online field matching me up with players who outranked my power level a substantial amount. Yet, I have no desire to search for loot, make my characters as powerful as possible, or even grind for some cosmetic skins, as ultimately the core hook just isn't enough to keep me coming back. What is here is mechanically solid, yet it just never manages to be gratifying enough to keep me invested past an hour or so. And with the grind the game requires, that is just not enough time to get engrossed with the elements at play here. Marvel's Avengers on the PlayStation 5 is an okay game. It might just be one of the most okay games I have ever played.